Right, so for those of you who have been watching up to this point, you will be familiar with Chapter 3. All I'm going to do in this video is effectively make corrections to the code that I've written in the last episode. So by the end of this episode, we will have written our first bit of network code that is functioning. I made some absolute amateur mistakes in the last episode. Effectively, if you follow in Beej's guide, just be aware that you're not meant to just copy every little bit of code. You're actually meant to put it together and kind of understand that some of it is just educational bit of code. You don't have to write everything. Okay, so I'm going to kind of point out the mistakes that I made in the last episode. I've made some comments, I've made some changes, and hopefully help you guys along with this network programming journey that we're both on. So go to your main program file, or main.c file, okay? I've commented out stuff, I've added comments in, so I'm going to try and explain the changes that I've made from the last episode. Some are completely amateur and I was absolutely kicking myself after it. It's not that I was making mistakes, it was just that I was copying everything blindly, so learn from my mistakes, never copy blindly. The first thing that I added was actually these header files, so these are necessary for network programming, okay? So if you go in to do any sort of network programming, you need ARPA, which I'm assuming is Address Resolution Protocol, or ARPANET, Internet, and then NetInet, Internet.h, and NetDB. Now this one we're not actually going to use up to this point, I figured out, okay? This is going to be for future chapters in Beej's guide, so we don't need that one at the moment, but add it in anyway, okay? Now you'll notice that I commented stuff out. Now why did I do that? Well, turns out that all of that code that I copied was just for educational purposes. So I apologize if you typed that out, but actually in kind of making the corrections I was making, this is quite handy to see, and it's quite handy to have at the top of your program. So I would recommend you keeping it there anyway. Quite literally, all of these structs are in these header files up here. So, you know, we don't need to recreate them, okay? They're all there for us. So comment them out, leave them there. I'm sure they'll come in use later. Again, sometimes learning, you kind of make silly, stupid mistakes like I did, and then you pick up from it. I'm not an expert, so please don't follow everything I'm doing. And I'm not going to sleep, it's too early. So let's turn that off. Right, so let's go down then to this, our main file. Now I didn't include main, which again was stupid. Again, I was just copying everything that was on Beej's guide. Don't do it, learn from my mistakes. So I can get rid of that now, there's no need for that. So yeah, make sure you include a main function, okay? Of course, every C program needs a main function. Anyway, right, let's get to it. So quite literally, what we had done was we had defined this twice. So that's why I've got that comment there, okay? So make sure you only define it once. I don't know why I'd done that. I don't know if in Beej's guide it kind of done that and I was just copying it exactly the same. Yes, I think it did somewhere. Where was it? I swear that it did. Ah, there we go. Right, okay, so there once, and I think it was here as well. So yep, there we go. So I effectively I had defined the same struct twice. Again, I had a bit of a break from programming. Please forgive me for that. Okay, so yeah, make sure you don't define it twice. You only need to define it once. So I defined it at the start. You can do it however you want. Okay, so long as it's in the right order. So let's talk a little bit about this then. Okay, so this is a function that we're calling from one of the header files. Now, effectively what it's doing, okay, and we kind of talked about this in the last episode, okay, especially in Beej's guide, it covers this quite a bit. P2N, okay, what does that mean? It means presentable to, or presentation to, is it presentation or presentable? I forget. Network to presentation, so it'd be presentation to network, okay? So quite literally, all it's doing is taking this bit of text, which we are effectively giving the computer or the machine, okay? We're given this IP address, but it doesn't know it's an IP address. It needs it in a binary format. That's how computers work, okay? They need it in a binary format, as I understand it from Beej's guide. So what this is going to do is going to take a presentation version of the IP address, which is going to be our text, and it's going to convert it to something the network can understand. So that's why it's P2N, okay? Now AF underscore INET, that is effectively saying it is IP version 4. That's all that's saying. So we're saying this is IP version 4, this is the IP address, and we want to store it in this structs, SA in the struct socket address, and we want to store that in SIN address, okay? So socket internet address, I believe. So if we go up to, we can actually work this out. So This is showing sock address in. So let's have a look at sock address in. Where is that? Okay, it's here. So we are storing that in, which field are we storing that in? S-in address. So it should be S-in address. Yeah, so here. So that's where we're storing it inside the struct that we created. So we're storing it in a field in our struct that we just created, okay? So that's what it's doing. It's converting that into a binary format. That's all it's doing. And the same goes then for our IPv6. So we're literally doing the exact same thing, okay? So we are saying, okay, I want to turn this from a presentation format, so effectively the varchar that we created, or series of characters, wherever it may be, and it's going to be an IPv6, of course, this time, and we're going to store it in the SA6 struct that we've just created inside the socket internet address 6, version 6 address. Okay, and again, if we scroll up and we go to here, we can see that we would be technically storing it there, which is another struct inside this struct. So conception, okay, struct inside a struct. So that's it. So that's quite literally all that's doing. So that is quite interesting, really, because, you know, we've effectively, right there, all we've done is we've converted a bit of text, our IP address, into a format that the machine can read, our computer can read. That's all that's doing. Now, this is actually a good question. I'm not too sure what that's doing. It is... Okay, right. First of all, again, a mistake that I made. Mistakes that I've made, I should call out, okay. I left out the 6 here for IPv6, so I can get rid of this now. And also, I can get rid of this. And I'm going to get rid of this as well. Actually, no, I'm not going to get rid of that. Right, so yeah, IP. So this should have been IP4. I think I just added as IP before. Okay. Now I do know what this is doing. This is effectively we are creating a string type, or a type IP4, which is of type char, and it has however many characters in it that inet address string length has, which will be the length that we set it to previously. Okay, that's, as I understand it, that's what that means. Okay, so now what this is doing is effectively converting it back into a readable format that us humans can understand. Okay, so again, I imagine there's going to be a lot of this when we're going over network programming. Okay, so from presentation to network, there's also going to be network to presentation. Okay, so quite literally what we're saying here, this is going to be IP version 4. We can find the address here. We're going to store it in here, I imagine, and it's going to be of this length. That's my guess. I don't know. We can figure that out as we go along. Okay, and then quite literally we're printing it out then. Okay, and we're going to run this program now, and you'll see what it's doing. I'll give you a bit more of an idea, but it's quite literally just going to print out the address, okay, which we give it earlier. We converted it, and we converted it back to a readable format here. And we've done the same then for IPv6. Okay, so we created a character called IP6, which is going to be of length, whatever we set it to before, which of course is going to be standard for IP addresses. And then we do inet network to presentation again, same thing, but this time we specify IPv6, grab the address of the IP address itself, and then we give it, effectively we're storing it in here, and that's the length and so on. Okay, and we're printing it. So let's see what that looks like then. Okay, now I'm well aware that I'm going to get things wrong here. Okay, so let's do clang, do main, main.c, I'll just call it main. Let's run this and see if it works. It should work, and yes, it does. Okay, so again, it doesn't look like much, and I do understand that, and I do appreciate that. Okay, it doesn't look like much at all, but actually what we've done is quite interesting, and it's something that is a start in the network programming journey. If you think about it, what we've done is we've given the computer an IP address, it's converted into a binary format, and it's taken that binary format and we've converted it again into a presentable format, and that is something we're going to be doing a lot of in network programming. So that's it. That's all I wanted to do for this episode. It's short, it's 10 minutes, I know. But, you know, hopefully you prefer these shorter episodes. Makes it easier for you guys to digest, I think. and I don't want you guys to get fed up. If you've enjoyed, please like, comment, subscribe. In the next episode, we're going to be going over chapter 4, which I believe is up the top here. So, I mean, actually, chapter 4 is quite basic. It's just talking about from IP version 4 to version 6. So we'll quickly go over that, but then it's going to be system calls then, okay? So this is going to be actually doing more stuff with the addresses and so on, okay? So things like get address info and so on, okay? So if you liked, drop a like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys another time, hopefully soon. Bye.